Well, first of all, this is Heidi
Hi.
Jacobs, and I'm Carol Ann McCormick, and we welcome you to Inside Out. We do these webinars every month, and we pick different topics. This one is focusing on the differences between assisted living and nursing care. And most of what we're talking about, you're going to be able to apply to other locations. We do have some Knollwood specific material for you today, though, as well. But hopefully this will educate you on some differences that people seem to kind of get confused on a lot. Sometimes people call us regarding assisted living and what they really need is nursing care for their family member. So hopefully this will help you out. So we are going to move on and tell you a little bit about our goals for today. But first, Heidi's going to tell you a little bit about Knollwood.
So Knollwood's a nonprofit community, and we are located in a really beautiful residential neighborhood. In fact, it's kind of a secret back here. If you don't know where we're at, you don't know where we're at. It's lovely. It's right across the street from Rock Creek Park. We're surrounded by trees and nature. We have what, 12 acres, 16 acres? 16 acres. Lots of gardens and outdoor space. We are 462 and greater, and we're a lifetime community. So what that means is we have different levels, 5 levels of living here at Knollwood. And we'll talk to you a little bit more about the nursing and the assisted living today. We do have independent as well.
And most of Knollwood is for independent living, but it's important for people to know that there is assisted living and nursing here as well. So today you're going to hopefully learn a lot. We're going to put on the screen a lot of the acronyms that you may hear and tell you what they mean. We're also going to have some terms that maybe are frequently misunderstood. And there's also different criteria for people who are living in assisted living and nursing care. And of course, everyone wants to learn about costs and money and everything associated with paying for care. So we'll cover that as well today.
Oh, we have a test for you. This will help you also understand and learn a little bit about the community. So I'm going to read you this test, and then we're going to go on to some other things. And then we're going to come back and see if you were able to answer it correctly. So Jane and John live in a community offering socializing, educational programs, housekeeping, and dining. They both need some reminders to take medicine, and Jane gets around really easily. John slowly. Jane no longer cleans or cooks, but their apartment has a kitchenette, and Jane has help with showering, and John has stable but chronic illness. So do you think Jane and John live in assisted living or in nursing care?
And the next test, so there's 2 tests here. And again, you'll get the answers later on to see what you've learned during the presentation. But Julie lives in a place sounds a lot like Jane and John. And there's socializing, entertainment programs, housekeeping, and dining. She gets around with a little bit of help, but Julie does get around, and she does have a lot of trouble with incontinence and has some medical issues that require close monitoring. One of her medical issues is diabetes, and she really can't be counted on to stick to her diet. Do you think Julie lives in nursing care or in assisted living care? Stay tuned and you'll get the answer.
It's a tricky one. So the types of communities, so life plan, we have independent living and nursing. You have to have both independent and nursing to be considered a life plan community. They may also have assisted living and memory care, but you do have to have the nursing component with the independent to be considered a life plan. And we do have assisted living and memory care here as well. We have freestanding independent and free separate standing assisted living. Now we're all in the same building. You don't have to leave the building to get, sometimes when I say freestanding, people think you have to walk out and come back in. So, and then we have a nursing, combination of assisted living, independent, combination of assisted and nursing. So these are the different types that they are.
And when you're looking at communities, you will notice that they're not all going to be life plan. Some communities will say continuing care, and back in the day that used to mean life plan. Today, it could be life plan or it might not be. A lot of places use the term continuing care if they have independent living, assisted living, and memory care, but they might be missing the nursing piece. So, and it's skilled nursing and it's a special licensure. Some places out there are going to be just independent living, or just assisted living, or just independent and assisted living. So it's really important that you ask, do they also have a license for skilled nursing? Not a relationship or a partnership with some other location place that is not theirs, but do they have their own skilled nursing? And it would be licensed, of course, if they did.
And the reason why that's important, I'm just gonna say real quick, is because every community has different licensing. So assisted living has different regulations for licensing than nursing has. And your loved one, as they decline, they may have to be discharged if they have criteria that doesn't fit that licensing. So it's nice because if you have the nursing component to it, they'll never decline to a point where they have to be discharged, other than maybe a short stay at a hospital.
Now, we forgot to mention at the beginning how people can ask us questions. Yeah, so if you take your mouse and hover it near the bottom edge of your screen, like right around here, you'll see a bar pop up, and you can either use the chat function or the Q&A function, and you can type in your questions. But somebody already has been keying in questions, so I'll take one and Heidi will take one. And one question that we got is, and I think this must be related to Knollwood specific, so I'm gonna answer it thinking that they're asking about Knollwood. Can you move into assisted living or nursing from your house? And I'm guessing meaning without living at Knollwood first. Nursing care, it can be very tricky. We don't usually have openings at that level. They're usually reserved for only people of Knollwood. Sometimes we can take someone for a temporary rehab if they are in very good health and very likely to go back to their house or condo in short matter. Assisted living, that's really a timing thing. Right now, we do have 2 openings in assisted living that residents of Knollwood do not need. So when you're watching this and you figure out that you do have a family member that would benefit from assisted living, definitely call us, because right now there is an opportunity to move from assisted living from your house or condo.
My question says, can you bring your caregiver from home to assisted living with you? And my answer, or yes, you can. The person does need to be with a company, correct, that's licensed.
Well, they have to go through, if they're not there is a like a certification verification process that Knollwood goes through, because we don't want people coming in here to work for you if, for example, maybe they haven't had a background check, or so there is a little bit of requirement to do that, but you can.
All right, if you have more questions, send them our way. We like questions.
So we covered that, so we're going to move to our next display here. And so we mentioned earlier that there are life plan communities, and as Heidi said, to be life plan, you have to have at least independent living and skilled nursing and maybe other things between. But within life plan communities, there are different categories. So just like if you think about the category vehicle, a vehicle could be a boat, a train, a car, a bicycle. Life plan communities can look very similar from the outside or even from their materials, but there may be a difference in payment and coverage at a community. So type A communities are going to have a price point that's a little higher because you're going to be paying for some long-term care costs, whether or not you ever use it. And that is called a type A, or life care community is another term for type A. All of the life plan communities offer care, if you will, for life, but life care is the technical term for type A. The type B is called modified life care, And there may be some sort of discount if you're ever use assisted living or nursing care. And again, your fees will be a little bit higher in independent living because no one's sure who's ever going to need care or not. Now, type C communities, which is what Knollwood is, are the type that you're only going to pay for care if and when you need it. And that's a type C community. You may also hear the term continuum. And continuum of care used to be synonymous with life plan, but some places that say they have a continuum may not have skilled nursing. So if you ever need long-term nursing care or short-term rehab, you're only going to get it at a community that has a skilled nursing license. We're going to, in the next couple slides, we're going to talk about instrumental activities of daily living, as well as activities of daily living, because they are different.
So instrumental activities of daily living are a lot of the things that we're all doing right now. We are, maintaining our household, doing our laundry, cleaning, transportation, cooking, all the tasks involved with cooking. And we can do all of that on our own.
And then activities of daily living without the word instrumental actually refer to you and your person. So activities of daily living, a cognitively and physically healthy person will do these on their own without needing help. So, I took a shower this morning and, I made sure I brushed my teeth, flossed and dried my hair. I got dressed on my own, had breakfast on my own. And of course, when I use the restroom, I'm doing it in a hygienic way, and I'm also functionally mobile. But sometimes people have trouble with one or more of these. And that is a sign that someone's independence is either declining or may have declined a lot.
So before I go on, just look at the little pop-up, call for a detailed conversation about assisted living care level. So call us if you'd like to talk more or if you'd like to schedule an appointment. And we will go in more depth with you. So some other things that you will hear is home health aides, home care aid, nursing assistant aid, medication aid, and companion. And those may all sound like the same thing to you, but there is some differences. Okay. So home health aid is and a home care aid, they are actually certified and they are able to help with some of those activities of daily living. Some places medication aides are actually trained in medication, and some places care and health aides have the same training depending on the state. Now, a companion is not licensed or trained on actually doing the activities of daily living. They are trained to help with more of the instrumental activities like helping with errands or driving you around or helping with meal prep, but not actually putting their hands on you. So they shouldn't be dressing you, bathing you, things like that, because they're not trained on how to do that.
And they don't have certification.
Yeah. Oh, our favorite.
Yeah. So at Knollwood, we try to avoid acronyms because we figure why confuse an already confusing topic. But you'll hear us using words, and I know all of you can read what's on the chart, but we're just showing you what are the actual words that are in place of the acronym, because I think it's a lot easier to use words than acronyms. So these are some of the acronyms you may see as you're shopping around. And I think we have even more on the next slide.
There's a couple pages of them.
Yeah. These are common for a therapy. And if some places may have therapists on site, but may not have a nursing center. And so maybe it's like a therapy office or where they do outpatient. If somebody has a skilled nursing license, they can also do inpatient therapy. Some of these therapies cannot be done outpatient, or some forms cannot be done outpatient. But, it is important for you to know there are even more therapies that are listed here. And then there are nursing acronyms. If a community has a licensed nursing home administrator, then they have a skilled nursing license. So that's another thing. If you're looking at communities and you want to kind of think, okay, is this community gonna be a place I can stay forever? Then they would have skilled nursing, even though you might not need it, but they would have it. And you can also ask the place, do they have a nursing home administrator? Because if the answer is no, then they are not a lifetime community. And then licensed practical nurse and licensed vocational nurse is very similar type of licensure, but in some states, practical nurse is the licensure, and in other states, vocational nurse is the licensure. And I think vocational is more common out west, isn't it? Yeah. So,
So we have this sort of certified medicine aide, certified nursing assistant, home health aide. So you'll probably hear the term CNA a lot. Sometimes a certified nursing assistant is actually trained for medication aid as well, and home health aide. So they can have all of those certifications that you're seeing right here, or they may only have one. But they all have certification. And then social workers. And not all assisted livings are going to have a social worker, but most do nowadays, but skilled nursing will have social workers.
yes, always. So here's kind of a visual comparison. So if you're looking at a community and you're trying to gauge, is this assisted living or is this a nursing environment? Or maybe a community has both, like Knollwood. Nursing is mostly one room living. And I think you're going to see hospital beds in every room in every nursing center. Assisted living, you're typically going to bring your own furniture, and so most people bring a regular bed. Sometimes in nursing care, you may have your own private shower, but not always. There are often common shower rooms. Sometimes even shared bathrooms can be common in nursing care, but you're not going to have that same type of sharing when you're looking at assisted living. And usually in assisted living, there's a few different floor plan choices, not as many as you find typically for independent living. But in nursing care, it's going to be, again, rooms. There aren't really going to be floor plan choices. And some rooms, if they're shared, might be a little bit cheaper than a private room. So sometimes that's important to somebody to pay less, but sometimes people want more privacy and dignity. So they would rather have a private room, and private rooms are fairly rare. They're becoming less rare since COVID. But at the onset of COVID, only 10% of all people living in nursing centers in the US have private rooms.
I'm really impressed with our nursing center. The first thing I notice when I go into our nursing center is the lighting, the colors, and the smell.
You mean lack of smell?
Lack of it.
Like
Yeah,
lack of a bad
it smells like flowers because of the front desk.
Yeah.
But so our nursing center, but a lot of nursing centers, you'll notice they have like the hospital lighting. Ours doesn't have that, but that's kind of how I usually can tell the difference between assisted living and nursing. A lot of times nursing centers will have more of a smell to them. Unfortunately, there'll be a lot of people out in the halls sitting around in wheelchairs, things like that. Now, if you ever get the privilege of seeing our nursing, it doesn't look like that, but it's, a private nursing. So
Okay, so this does Knollwood have private rooms in nursing? We do actually, both our memory care is at the nursing level with private rooms, and our long-term care and rehab have private rooms. We do have a couple of rooms that can be shared. So for example, if two friends or a couple actually needed long-term care or rehab at the same time, could actually accommodate that. But they're typically used as private, and that is only for 4 of our rooms. So that's a good question. There's a good question for you.
how do you know when you have to move from assisted living? That's a really good question. So it comes to nursing, yeah, from assisted living to nursing. So it comes back down to those regulations, right? If you have a wound, an open wound on you that is, trying to put this in layman terms, it's gotten, it's gotten worse, it's not healing. That's often a time
Or
where you're
it's
going to need,
staying the same without healing.
or staying the same. That's often a time when you're going to need the nursing component. if you need a catheter or a feeding tube or any kind of tubing, that's another time that you're gonna probably need nursing. If you're no longer ambulatory, you just cannot get up and out of bed without being fully transferred, that's the time that you'll be needing to go to nursing. So those are some examples with some that you have.
I think sometimes people don't think about activities of daily living, but people who are benefiting from assisted living might need help with some activities of daily living. But maybe they can do some by themselves or part of some by themselves. But if somebody's needing help with all of their activities of daily living, or it always takes two people to help them, or one staff person does the entire activity of daily living for a person, that's usually a sign as well. So,
Sometimes it could be a matter of medications that you're on as well. You know, if you need to have injections for diabetes or be highly monitored for pain medications, or things like that, then also those are signs that it's time to go to nursing care.
and also keep in mind that it's not necessarily one thing, but it's your whole person that has to be looked at as a whole. So that's very important that you realize that too. And what you can and can't do for yourself. That was a great question. Somebody did ask, can we send an assisted living brochure from Knollwood? Yes, we can. What you want to do is either email us at marketing@knollwoodcommunity.org or type in your email address or your phone number into the chat or the Q&A. Because what we'll do is we'll send you our assisted living information. It's going to include pricing. Knollwood has levels of care for assisted living. A typical floor plan. We have a couple different floor plans, but the most common floor plan you'll get some information specific to assisted living at Knollwood. And also about rehab, because if you're living in assisted living at Knollwood, and let's say you have appendicitis attack, you go to the hospital, your appendix is removed. Now your surgeon says you need rehab, you'd actually get it right at Knollwood. You wouldn't have to wonder where to go. And sometimes too, because we do have levels of care within assisted living at Knollwood, people don't always understand, well, you know, I think I will be a level 1, or I think my mom will be a level 2. Our assisted living director and nursing staff actually have this big series of questions that they run down to determine what level of care somebody needs. And, you know, some of the questions are about medicine. Some are about diagnoses. Some are about treatments. Some are about activities of daily living. So it's a thorough look at what sort of support you need to determine. And someone may need too much support, and then it may be determined that nursing care is the best. So we definitely can send you an assisted living brochure. This kind of relates on you.
Is there a waiting list for assisted living? That kind of, I don't know if I know how to answer this. I might let you, Karen. It kind of depends, because it's such a, usually assisted living, by the time you're talking to us or looking at it, you really need to go ahead and make the move. And yes, we may not have, like we said, we may not have availability, and we can definitely put you down on a list and let you know when there is availability. But often you're going to need to move when that need is happening, because otherwise, if you wait, it's going to be a nursing need, not a assisted living need. So, kind of, how would you answer that? Like,
Yeah, kind of like you did.
like kind of, we would. I have
Yes.
put people on a wait list before because I knew something was coming, and I reached out to them as soon as it opened. So it just kind of depends on the timing here in Knollwood with our assisted living and what we have available.
Yeah, so
We do have a couple available now, so.
yes, so definitely if you're looking, and when there's an opening, you know, usually somebody is here within 30 days time. And you know, if someone's already looking, then some things are already happening that maybe aren't safe. So we do encourage you to call us about, you know, the opening we have. If you wait a month or 2 months, you may be disappointed if we say, okay, well, I'm sorry, we did have an opening, but you didn't call us. So please call, and we will help you with that, hopefully.
And if you have a loved one you're looking for assisted living for, I do talk to a few people that say, we have a little bit of care coming in, or we're gonna wait a little bit longer and see how this happens. What happens with it? I would say that if you're considering it and you're looking at assisted living, it's really time to make a move. We both have been doing this for many, many years. We just talked about it before we even started this webinar this morning. The thing that we see the most, and it's disheartening, is people wait too long. And the longer you wait, the less options you have. So,
And people often call us and looking at assisted living when they really need long-term nursing care.
yeah, they've already made it.
Just because you're in a house or condo getting care, that's really the same thing as assisted living care.
Right.
It's just that when it's in your house, it might cost more because you're paying for one-on-one. And it may also be costly in a risk way if the person whose shift doesn't show up. Whereas in a community, if one person on a shift can't come in because they think they have the flu, there are other people who are working there, and your son or daughter doesn't have to frantically call the agency or somebody saying who's going to come in and, and help mom today, or your daughter doesn't have to take her day off of work because your caregiver didn't show up. So care in your house or condo, you're already getting assisted living care, you're just getting it at home versus in a community.
And that makes me think about, people often ask me, like, why do people go to assisted living? Why wouldn't they just get care at home? And it might sound ideal to have care at home. Some of the issues that Caroline had brought up is, some people just may not show up to work, and then that's your issue. If someone doesn't show up to work here, it's not your issue, it's our issue. So, but one of the things, the biggest reasons is because when you're at home, you're paying for the cost of your home, and you're paying for the cost of care. And that can become really expensive. You still have to put the new roof on and pay the power and all of those things and pay for care. When you move to assisted living, you merge the two. So it's actually more affordable.
Well, another thing too, like I am somewhat of a loner of a person, but I could not ever stand to be stuck in the house every day or with the same person day in and day out. So even though when I'm older, I may say, I just want to stay in my house as long as possible, I might really be thinking, oh, I'm too scared to move. Because I think sometimes the fear of the change is what drives people to say, I want to stay in my house as long as possible. Sure, no one ever wants their health to decline at all. And some of it, we all slow down with age, no matter what. And we all think, oh yeah, I just want to die, in my sleep. Well, who doesn't? It's like kind of like all right, well, it's not unique to you. But just think about how different life may be. If you're not somebody who is always like to hide out in your home day in and day out, then you might not benefit from a caregiver in the house. If you are somebody who is like a total closet loner and never doesn't like to go out and do anything anywhere, whether by yourself or with other people, then maybe staying in your house is fine. But if you're someone that, even enjoys grocery shopping or, just taking a walk around the block or, going to a museum, even if it's on your own, then you're probably not going to be someone that wants to be cooped up in your house with a caregiver. So someone asked for the Knollwood email address, and I think it's probably on one of the screens, maybe. But Alicia put it in the chat box too, so you can all look at the chat box to get our email address. Thanks.
I was actually going to say too that I've actually talked to people who are loners who have wanted to stay home, and you know what? It drives them crazy having somebody there just hovering over them the entire time. So I've had quite a few people tell me that. And the poor caregivers, they want to feel like they're doing their job. So they're in your house for 8 hours and they've already done the task you've asked them to do that took maybe an hour. And now they're sitting there staring at you, waiting for you to need something.
And they can't just leave or go.
Right.
Because if something happened to you on their watch, that is.
Yeah, I've had people
trouble.
recently move in and they say, oh, it's so nice that I have what I need. There's not somebody hovering.
That's true, because you have your own little apartment. A nurse or an aide may come in to make sure you took medicine, or maybe you like someone nearby when you're showering. but then they leave and they close the door, and then you have your privacy, or you can have them stay, but they probably have someone else that they want to go support somewhere, but you can come and go in your apartment, as you wish, and so if you want to shut the door and be alone, you can, but who knows, maybe you want to go down the hall because there's a guitarist performing in the afternoon or something. So it's nice, yeah. So there's pros and cons to everything, but I think some family members have a hard time assessing some of the pros and cons. Somebody said here, can you have assisted living services in your independent apartment? And again, this would be at Knollwood, because we're answering for Knollwood. But people do sometimes bring services in. Again, it's like Heidi said, there is going to be, if you just need a little bit of help, maybe you only need help when you're, who knows, when you're showering. And that's it, then, maybe because maybe you have a cast on your arm or something, or maybe it is a permanent that you need help. Then people do often start with a little bit of help in their apartment home, because usually people don't go from being independent to needing assisted living overnight. You can't move into independent living needing help. Okay, so do not wait for that to happen. But yeah, sometimes it's temporary help in your apartment. Sometimes it's a little bit of help. But again, there's going to be, if you need someone around the clock and having them in your independent apartment, you're not an independent person. Or even if you need somebody for 8 or 10 hours a day, you're not an independent person. And you might have more privacy and dignity living in an assisted living instead of somebody watching and staring at you 8 or 10 hours a day. So would you add anything to that?
You just like you had already said, you cannot move into independent living at Knollwood if you already have care needs. So, and to me, that is the ideal, is being able to move into independent living, build a community, and then have everything you need here. That's to me kind of the ideal of a lifeline community.
But then you won't have to worry, is there assisted living waiting list?
Correct.
You will be
Or
in
nursing
line for an opening.
or
Yes. Yeah.
those things. That's true.
You'll be in line for that.
One thing I wanted to touch on is long-term care insurance is also something that you can use in assisted living. So you have a policy and you've been spending all that money on that policy. This is a great time to cash it in. Yes, you can use it on home care at home as well. But the way I look at it is long-term care will cover your cost of assisted living. They won't cover your mortgage. So if you move into assisted living, it's kind of like they're covering your mortgage. They're covering everything that they cover. Not that they'll cover the entire cost, but it's a great way to utilize your long-term care and get the value you paid out of it. That's a good point.
Okay.
We talked a lot about all that.
Yes, we did. Yeah. So, yeah. So in Washington, we'll go back one DC for 1 minute, but in DC, it is required that there are nurses 24/7 in assisted living, but assisted living is not regulated at the federal level. So state by state can be different. And I know the district isn't a state, but the district does require a nurse 24/7 in the assisted living building itself. That's an assisted living staff member. And all nursing centers have registered nurses around the clock. And of course, both assisted living and nursing care are going to have some sort of support aid, medicine aid, home care aid around the clock as well. Talk about this one a little bit more.
So just what it looks like when you walk into an assisted living versus a nursing care center. So in assisted living, you're going to see fewer residents in wheelchairs. Most of them are going to be mobile and using their walkers and sitting around the common area. There'll be a lot of people sitting in the dining room. And in a nursing center, more people are going to be in wheelchairs, lots and lots of wheelchairs. Fewer people are ambulatory. And when you go into the dining room, you're going to see most people are actually sitting in wheelchairs at the dining room table as well. And then you're going to see more nurses and medical staff in a nursing community, a nursing center than you would in assisted living.
Yeah. And we have our phone number on that screen too, if you wanted to call Heidi or I with more questions.
I'd love to meet you. Call me.
And then there is eligibility for assisted living. And again, it's going to vary somewhat by state, but for the most part, almost anywhere you might look at assisted living, the expectation is that you are going to be managing safely in an apartment on an ongoing basis. People might be checking in on you physically, entering your space. They're going to knock on the door first. But the expectation is that, you're going to be pretty safe having an apartment on your own. And you're going to be moving around the community on your own. At Knollwood, the assisted living and independent living neighborhoods are connected by an elevator and a little short hall. And so people actually go back and forth at Knollwood. It can be for dining. It can be for different programs that are going on. The choral group may be practicing in the special care center area, and residents from assisted living or independent living may go to that choral practice. Or the opera group meets in the auditorium that is very convenient for assisted living residents. So there is mixing and mingling, and it's frequent that we see assisted living residents at Knollwood in what we call the hall or the concourse area, which is common space for independent living. So moving around the community is something that is, and transferring independently is something that is an eligibility for independent living, as is eating without help. Now, it doesn't mean that you're cooking and shopping and prepping and cleaning up, but if somebody actually is helping you to eat, feeding you, sitting next to you, coaching you, you are eating with help. So that is, for assisted living, you need to eat without help. And you have to be somewhat cooperative and participatory in some of your support needs. So you're, somebody who is not cooperative in taking medication is going to be more suited and appropriate for a nursing staff. Somebody who can, to some degree, participate in continence management, depending on the degree of participation, could possibly be appropriate for assisted living. And there are, if somebody has acute health problems and unstable health problems, they will not be a candidate for assisted living.
So nursing care candidates, they may need help moving around, transferring to and from their chair to bed. They need help with incontinence. They need help with activities of daily living, such as shower, bathing, a lot of help. And or maybe not a ton of help with everything, but they need help with the big things like transfers. And then they have chronic but sometimes acute health needs. And back to, maybe they just need basic help with eating. Maybe they need help with bathing, all of those things.
Yeah. Some health situations that are very critical or very unstable may actually need specialized care that isn't typical at all nursing centers. So somebody may need a specialized center or hospital, either or. Sometimes there could be psychiatric benefits to somebody being in a nursing center that has a lot of psychiatric expertise. Or what if somebody needs a ventilator? They might need a specialized place. Sometimes people have traumatic brain injuries and they might be better served in a specialized hospital or nursing center. So sometimes even somebody could be too sick, too ill, or too fragile for nursing care.
Regulatory comparisons. So assisted living versus nursing care, they both have heavy regulations. They're both state on assisted living, but nursing is actually federal as well. And they have licenses, supervision, personal care services. Now, nursing is going to have more medical services and care than assisted. And assisted living has registered nurses in DC. I've seen many states that does not happen. And in our nursing, we're going to actually have a physician as the medical director. There's licensed nurses in assisted living and in nursing, but you're also gonna have nurses that can administer medication, so you're actually gonna have your registered nurses as well.
And I think with, when you talk about assisted living and regulation at the state level, for both nursing and assisted living, the departments of health are involved, as well, usually. So they're going to be having their own kind of inspections and surveys. And they do come to both assisted living and nursing centers to do inspections and surveys. And sometimes it could be Department of Health, something could be fire safety. Even like, there are even like restaurant type regulations as well. And the nursing center is always going to have a nursing home administrator. You can move that one.
Yeah, how does long-term care insurance come to play? We kind of touched on this, so you, depending on your policy, every policy is different. You could use long-term care in independent living with home care. You could use it in assisted living and nursing. Now, most policies, if you have long-term care, are going to kick in for assisted living because you now need help with daily activities of daily living. And by the time you get to nursing care, there's really not too many reasons why it shouldn't have kicked in at that point. So that's when you would be able to use it.
Yeah. And if you do have a long-term care insurance policy, let us know, either email us, call us, or type in your name and send us your address. We do long-term care insurance workshops. We've pretty much already done the ones this year, but we could do one for you if you wanted. It's part of our community service. But if you have a policy, we can help you understand it. It doesn't mean you have to move to Knollwood. But we will gladly help you understand your long-term care policy. They're all different, kind of like automobile policies are all different. And what is it you always say about the auto insurance in cars?
Oh,
I like that.
yeah, I always say that, you know, people tell me all the time that they paid so much money into their long-term care and that you want to use it, but you actually don't drive around hoping you crash your Tesla tomorrow so that you can get your auto insurance back. And that's how I look at long-term care insurance. The best case scenario is that you actually never have to use it, that you have it if you do. And if you don't, then you lived a healthy life until you passed on. I mean,
and those of you who are watching, if you happen to be under age 60, I would actually advise that you look into getting a long-term care policy. You can't get it. The older you are, the harder it is to get.
and more expensive it will be.
Yeah. And then somebody asked, what's the average stay of people in assisted living and in nursing care? And I'm guessing they mean at Knollwood. In general, I know the average stay in nursing care nationwide is more than 5 years in nursing care. And women tend to have longer stays than men. And that's just a nationwide statistic. Assisted living, I really don't know. There are people that have been in assisted living here for like 8
to 10 years.
Yeah, and then there are people that, you know, there's someone who moved in last week, and then there's someone who's coming next week. So it really varies by the person. And if somebody is moving in, let's say they're already getting a lot of help, maybe they've already been having help at home, they've already been getting assisted living care. So, you know, it also varies. You know, consider how long have you been getting help in your house already?
Right.
That's gonna be. Does Knollwood have a memory care center in skilled nursing? Yes, we actually do. Our the memory care at Knollwood is at the nursing level, not the assisted living level. So that means that somebody can have not just cognitive trouble, but also medical concerns as well.
Which often happens with diseases with dementia in the brain. I've worked at freestanding memory cares in the past, and they're great. They have lots of memory support. Everything's around the memory care needs. However, we used to discharge 4 to 5 people a month from there because with that disease, you'll often stop swallowing. There's just so many different things that you may need. The incontinence issue causes a lot of open wounds. So there's just a lot of reasons why having memory care and nursing, you wouldn't have to move your loved one, which a freestanding memory care, there's a high risk that you will.
And even if it's not memory care, even if it's just an
Assisted
assisted living that doesn't have the skilled nursing license.
Yes,
If any of those same medical conditions that Heidi just mentioned happen, the assisted living cannot keep you.
no,
And that's why it's good at a life plan community, because while nobody wants to have nursing care or assisted living care, because we want to always stay healthy till the end, but if something changes, you know that at the life plan community, like Knollwood, there's independent living for those of us who are like us right now. But then if you ever have changes, there is assisted living, there is nursing care. So, and actually even, and better than that, we also have inpatient rehab here. So if you're at a rental community that offers independent and assisted or assisted and memory care, and maybe you live there with your spouse, or maybe your sibling also lives there because they're having some similar challenges and they're maybe in the same community you are, or maybe it's really near your daughter's house, then you go to the hospital and have a surgery, and now you have to go to rehab somewhere for maybe 2 months. Well, then your sister who lives in your same community might not be able to come and visit you because you're somewhere in the city in a nursing center, or maybe your daughter who lives convenient to the assisted living now is nowhere near convenient to visit you in the rehab center. So it's nice that Knollwood has that piece as well.
and if you decline while you're in the rehab center, you don't get to go back to that assisted living,
That's true.
which happens a lot.
Mhm.
And so there's nothing more disheartening than having to tell somebody in their 90s they have to find a new place to live.
Mhm.
And so that's why I think a life plan community makes so much sense.
Pick your community wisely.
Yes. Oh, back to our test.
Oh,
This
Julie is my
yours.
person.
Yeah.
Okay, so Julie lives in a community offering socializing, blah, 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 blah. Remember how we talked about Julie? I think we can underline a few keywords here now. Okay, so she has quite a bit of trouble with incontinence, several medical issues that require close monitoring. And, she just really doesn't stick to her diet. With all of this, Julie is really more a nursing candidate for nursing care versus an assisted living candidate.
All right, and I've got Jane and John. They're living in a community. Let's see what's underlined so that we can point out those words. So both need reminding to take medications. They have a small kitchenette in their apartment. They get hope showering, and they're stable but chronic illness. So they are in assisted living.
Mhm. Yeah, so hopefully you got that right. We're gonna have a couple more true and false tests coming up for you in a little bit too. But one thing that's important if you are out there shopping or comparing, assisted living pricing is typically quoted by the month, and assisted nursing care is typically priced with daily prices. So just kind of keep that in mind if you're shopping, just a little tidbit for you. And Genworth does a survey every year called the Cost of Care Survey. Their survey from 2022 hasn't been published yet. At least I checked about 2 weeks ago and it wasn't, and I apologize. I didn't check before today, but the data that's on this sheet with median pricing is actually based on 2021 prices. Genworth does surveying of about 14 to 15,000 places in all 50 states, but these price points are related to DC, Maryland, and Virginia. And also keep in mind that many assisted living price points are without care. Knollwood's price points do include care, and you probably can't see this, it's too small, but you can write us or call us. But we have different degrees of care too, but even the base rate at Knollwood does include the cost of care. And these are averages. While on the previous slide, I just shared with you that assisted living is usually priced by the month. And it know what it is too, but we just broke it down by day, just so you can compare it to nursing care on this particular chart. Private rooms, most rooms are semi-private, so kind of keep that in mind as well. If you end up picking Knollwood for independent living or even assisted living, you can pretty much rest assured that you will most likely have a private room if you ever need nursing care at Knollwood. Because all but 4 rooms in Knollwood's nursing are private.
True or false? So Medicaid covers assisted living cost. True or false? Mostly false. Well, that was tricky.
Yes, it is.
So there are 5 assisted living properties in DC with Medicaid waivers. There's only 5. You usually have to get on a waiting list for those communities. They're a little bit difficult to get in. Medicaid typically covers nursing care for people who have no money. And they also, the thresholds vary state by state. So this is something that you can dig into a little further. But Medicaid is for basically people who have no assets, not a lot of income coming in. And at that time you would qualify, but there's only 4 communities in the DC area, or 5.
So if somebody does need Medicaid, what that means is they may have to wait until they're eligible for nursing care to have Medicaid kick in. Another true and false: Medicare covers assisted living costs. What do you think? This one is not tricky at all. This one is just plain false. Yeah. Medicare does not cover any assisted living stays. In fact, there are a lot of caveats that one has to meet for Medicare to cover nursing care. And again, the key term here is short term. So if somebody is having a health decline, declines aren't usually short term. They don't usually reverse themselves. So if somebody is needing long-term care that is not a short-term therapeutic stay, then Medicare is not going to cover either assisted living. And this kind of spells out a little bit about what Heidi and I were just talking about. So I threw up independent living here because most know it is independent living, and people who are living here, of course, are paying from their own money. Assisted living, those people who have long-term care insurance, most policies cover assisted living. We wouldn't know for sure unless we looked at yours, but most likely it would. Medicaid rarely covers assisted living, and it does not at Knollwood. And nursing people are if they're in for a short-term stay and then they're going back to their house, or maybe they're going back to their assisted living or independent apartment, after their knee surgery, Medicare will cover many short-term rehab stays, but not all. Sometimes people living in nursing centers and at Knollwood might have long-term care insurance. If someone is impoverished, they may be benefiting from Medicaid, helping to cover their cost of care. But if someone is not impoverished and they don't have long-term care insurance, they're going to be paying from their personal funds.
So here's a little bit of a comparison. Knollwood, we're 69% independent living. We have singles and couples here. We have all kinds of apartment size homes. We have priority access to assisted living and long-term care, memory care, those private rooms in assisted living. 31% of our community is assisted living nursing, mostly singles. Assisted living also has some different styles and sizes to choose from. Our nursing care is mostly private rooms other than a few. And assisted living is deficiency-free survey. We've gotten 5-star ratings in our nursing care. And you'd have priority access to rehab, long-term care, memory care, all of those things if you were here at Knollwood.
Yes, if you're watching this and thinking about a parent or aunt or uncle, you won't have to wonder what next if you're somebody whose family member chooses to move to Knollwood independent living. And another tidbit that I would point out is most of the time, if you as an adult child are calling around places on behalf of your parent, they're probably not an independent candidate, because most candidates for independent living are searching on their own. It's not always the case, but we find many times family members could be a little bit of denial, maybe a little bit of naivety, but they'll call us when their parent is already getting help in the home and thinking that their parent is independent. These are, if anybody has any last minute questions, we're going to ask you to type them in now. But these are the resources if you wonder where some of the factoids came from in this presentation. And this presentation is also recorded. So if you want to go back and look at it again, you can. It should be up by tomorrow. You may want to get a copy of this presentation, and you can either call us, phone numbers up there, or you could go to our website. Website is up there, and there is actually a you can actually email us through our website, or you can also just email us directly at marketing@knollwoodcommunity.org. But we do encourage all of you to come and take a tour. There's a reason you're watching this webinar today. So something is tickling the backside of your brain, or maybe it's worse than that. Maybe you're really concerned about a parent, but maybe you're just watching for your own benefit, for your own future. And if that's the case, come and talk to us about independent living. We are also able to arrange in-person tours for assisted living. We're not going to keep you here. We're not going to hold you overnight and trap you. But it's really good to come in person to see things and talk about your personal circumstances.
There's also previous recorded webinars on our website as well. There's so much information there. You can gather quite a bit from watching the different webinars that we've recorded in the past. And we even have some for meeting our residents. Those are really fun. They're my favorite. You can actually, oh, we're having another one coming up, but they're really fun way to kind of learn more about Knollwood. And we'll have, if you watch that one and you watch the one coming up live, we'll have new people.
Yes.
Yes.
And also, you know, for those that are farther away, watching the Meet the Residents webinars is fun. But when people come to take tours here, usually not on their first tour, but once we meet somebody, we often arrange lunches or dinners where you would have lunch or dinner with the resident, not us, because we're the salespeople. But that's a nice way to get to know the community. So you can meet residents on webinar, but you may also prefer to meet some in person.
Absolutely.
So if there are no last questions, we're going to say goodbye and thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Have a great day.